Oh, you want to know our plans, huh? Freedom and stuff.
Freedom and stuff.
Barbecued pork, man, and chicken enchiladas.
Yeah. Cheers.
I feel like I can't move.
Because your hat's gonna fall off?
Yeah.
Oh my good. Actually, that's pretty good. What was that? You know, it's Cabo Wabo Blanco tequila.
He gave it to me for the first time today, and apparently I won a bunch of awards and shit. So
Yeah, it's not bad for a $33 tequila.
yeah, it's all right. Not a big tequila guy, but
Fun fact. All right, so do you know who Dakota Johnson is? No.
I think I do.
Yeah. Well, I think. No,
Yeah,
I don't know.
I do. Yeah. She's beautiful, right? She's an actress.
Oh yeah. Okay. Cool. So you do know who she is. All
Yeah,
right.
she's the one that's on Suspiria.
Oh, I think that's true. But like, so what she's doing is she's working with this vibrator or this vibrator dildo company
Nice.
called Mod or something like that.
Mod?
Yeah, I think it's called. I'm not
MOD
entirely
or
sure.
like MA, like mod like an old white lady's name, or mod like
I think Mod like an old white lady's name.
MAUD?
Yeah,
Mod?
that
Oh,
could be.
jeez.
That's probably wrong. But essentially, what they're trying to do is like have a marketing like their marketing technique is that they want to get rid of the moniker like toy for like dildos and vibrators. Like they're trying to elevate, sex toys. That'd be like they're more than toys.
Mhm.
And I just thought like you ever seen Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels?
No.
There's a scene right where like the gangster, he's sitting there and like they're telling the story about this like badass gangster. His name's Hatchet Harry or whatever, right? But I think a good commercial would be like, this gangster sitting there and like he's talking to Harry and he's just like, so hey man, I don't have the money. I don't know what happened to the money. And then like the camera pans from behind this dude and homie's just sitting down with like the light above him, like when it like throws the shadows. For his face, he looks like super like dramatic, and you could just tell he's not having this shit.
Yeah.
Dude's trying to talk to him, and he's just like, "Nah, I'm not about this shit." But it doesn't matter. He's like, I'm sorry, man. I don't know what happened to money. I don't know what happened to money. And then the guy just gets pissed off, and he throws some shit at him, and then he grabs like the big black dildo that's sitting on this like table and shit, and he gets up on it and he starts beating the shit out of him.
Yeah.
And then it zoom ins to like on like right next to him, and a hashtag, and it says, "Not a toy." Like
Not to be fucked with.
not to be fucked with. Not a toy. I think that'd be a great like commercial for them.
Yeah. I thought you were gonna say that like he pulls the dildo out and like shoots a load at him.
No, it's
Like
because
a gun, like
it's because he dabbles in sex toys, so he has just shit laying around like his office. He just happens to have a big black dildo like laying right there.
okay, I know. Okay. I'm gonna say something, all right?
Uh-huh.
Okay. So since we're already on the topic of sex toys, we have something we're gonna talk about today, but this is something that I've always thought about, okay? It's sexy, like if like it's always been like this thing where like if a dude's going through like let's say like you like try to find something like this girl's like, hey, can you get this? It's in that drawer over there, and you're like, yeah. And then you're like, which one? And then she like tells you, and you're like, oh, you get the wrong one, right? And you pull it up, and there's like a dildo in there. Like most dudes are like, dude, that's kind of hot, But like if a chick came over to your house and you were like, hey, can you get it? It's like that drawer over there, and then she like opened a drawer, and then there's a fleshlight in there.
There you go.
She would be like, oh, this guy's a fucking creep.
So I guess to add to their thing, like, hey, dudes, join in on the fun. Like hashtag flashlights aren't toys either, dude.
I want to get the one that has like the ass cheeks and like the whole lower torso.
Is that a thing?
Yeah, you haven't seen that? It has like the whole lower torso and everything. You can get one with titties too, but that's pretty expensive.
Yeah, it's more like, dude, the Japanese go crazy with that shit. Like there's a whole industry backed by that.
All right.
Anyway, so our main story tonight.
The reason we're dressed like this
is so the documentary we're talking about today. Well, actually, it's not so much just a documentary, but it's about the whole like situation together. Is No Man's Land, and it was produced by Morgan Spurlock, which was the dude who made Super Size Me. The guy who like ate a bunch of McDonald's and proved that it was wrong, or wait, no, that it would
I know, right? That's what he did.
Yeah, he just
so
like,
stupid. He's like, I wonder if I just eat McDonald's if it'll be bad for me.
Yeah, but I think now he's trying to be a legitimate like filmmaker, but it turns out he's kind of a douchebag. Like he's kind of a sexual predator and shit like that too. Well, anyway.
Big surprise.
Yeah. Anyway, so essentially, like, so what happens in this documentary or the story behind it is that there's this militia group in Oregon, or in Burns, Oregon, that take over this county. It's actually it's a wildlife refuge, and like the feds came in and they pushed that's what the documentary has you believe, is that they came in, pushed these people out. These dudes showed up.
This is a Malhuer Wildlife Refuge.
Malhuer National Wildlife Refuge. And these dudes show up and, they occupy it for like, I think it was like 14 days.
41 days.
41 days?
41 days.
Yeah. And so, essentially like law enforcement didn't show up till like day 20 or something like that. You know what I mean? And so everybody was pointing out like this double standard, like, had it been Black Lives Matter, like the cops would have like ended it day one. You know what I mean? But you got these dudes, Lavoy Finicum, huh?
Well, I feel like, oh shit on my dick, dude. I feel like
you can just take it off. Put it on the ground.
Yeah, okay. You guys got the point, right? I had a little.
You had a hat on.
Yeah. I think that Antifa is more not Black Lives Matter. I think Antifa is more along the lines of like this militia group, because Antifa is kind of like sketchy and they are like militant and shit like that. Like, remember, I mean, in a way they kind of did do that when they took over like Portland. Remember, they took over like
they said that they weren't gonna have any they didn't want any police presence or whatever.
Yeah.
And see, that's what I like saw as like a really dumb thing when I was watching it, is that so many of these people were the same ones who will say, fuck Black Lives Matter and like fuck Antifa. But like there was a dude, Jason Patrick, who was with the militia dudes in Oregon. And he was in Georgia, protesting, militarizing the police. Like they wanted to buy like this giant armored personnel carrier. And he was there protesting. It's like, dude, they don't need it. Like he did a research and the study said that in the last 10 years, the only cop that died by gunfire was a dude who shot himself like on accident. And he's like, well, giant APCs don't protect against that. So, they fight for the same things for the most part. And yet, they don't like each other. Like it's kind of dumb. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. But all
right. Thanks for comment, subscribe. that's what we should just end it right there.
Okay. Well,
okay. So they took over the Malhuer, National Wildlife Refuge. Basically, it was just a bunch of people. What were they pissed off about?
They were pissed off because So
the documentary doesn't really make it that clear.
Yeah, that's the thing. The documentary kind of glosses over a lot of facts. So essentially in 2012, this dude or these two ranchers in Oregon were setting fires on their land. They were trying to do that thing, where you set fire to a part and then you kind of like let it grow after the fact, and because fire is healthy for, plant life. Mm-hmm. But what happened is a lot of these fires were spreading to public lands. So they were trying to stop them. But what the government also found out is that these dudes were setting the fires to cover up the fact that they were actually slaughtering herds of deer. So that's why they were mad at these dudes. So timeline is this. They get sentenced to, like, it's supposed to be a 5-year minimum sentence for this, but they only got sentenced to about 2 or 3 months. You know what I mean? They're just like, dude, 2 or 3 months, blah, blah, blah. And then that's it. You served your time, right?
Right. And that's like, well, did they actually get sentenced? Like, did they go to court and stuff?
Yeah, they went to court. They got sentenced and everything.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they did.
Damn. See, the documentary doesn't say any of this
shit. Right? And then, but what happened in 2016, a new judge takes over and he revisits the case and he says, no, like, you guys have to serve your full sentence. You know what I mean? And as soon as that happened, that's where like Bundy and Lavoy Finicum and his brother.
Bundy is the mastermind.
Well, yeah, he's definitely like the, what do you call it? The logistical leader, I suppose. Because Lavoy Finicum is sort of like the symbolic leader. Like he's a guy riding around on a horse and a freaking flag and cowboy hat, and he's doing all this crazy whatever nonsense. But basically, yeah, so as soon as they got their sentences reenacted, that's when they decided to go up north and, fight this, essentially they call it tyranny or whatever. But then turns out Trump pardoned these dudes in 2018. So it was no big deal, but they did set fire to the land, but like, I don't know if they were trying to
shit like that. Okay. So like shit like that is like, how can you defend like the president for doing something like that? Other than the fact that like he just likes white people.
Well, it wasn't okay. See, that's the thing. I think people kind of, I don't know if they get wrong about Trump. Like, of course, he loves white people. I mean, who doesn't love white people? I mean, Starbucks. You've been there. It's great coffee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's just that he catered to his base when he did this. When he pardoned them, he catered hard to his base, like the right wing militia, because they love those dudes. You know,
well, they're like his voters,
right? And so the moment. And it's easy to say that.
Well, we shouldn't say right-wing militia. We should say like, because if I think about it, it's more of like the working class, like blue collar white people that he was like catering to.
Right, but see, here's the thing: they tag along to like this ideal. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
They jump on the bandwagon, and that's why the town was like really scared because it's like, okay, yeah, you have some ranchers that are here that want to help other ranchers, but you know, right-wing militia dudes tagged along and decided they were going to like enact their will, you know, try to fight the government. And, you know, and so this guy, Jason Patrick, who was with the militia, he's probably the most level-headed of all these dudes. You know, like I said, he was the one fighting like police, police funding in Georgia. And he showed up here and like, there was a point where they were all yelling like, this is a war zone, we're gonna die, like we gotta fight, and this is that. And then, you know, he's like, dude, this is not a war zone, like this is Oregon, like we're just fighting for our rights to not be taken over by, like, to have our land not taken over by the federal government.
And that's the guy that the Agent Orange dad guy, right?
So his dad died of cancer from Agent Orange, and
allegedly, because you can't really say that. Like, okay, I don't want to get like dark or anything, but like,
what's our dark
episode? My mom had cancer twice, right? And she, I can see her face right. What? She, I don't know. She, like, their family thinks that it was because of pesticides that like, because when she was little, her family used to pick fruit like for like farming and stuff like that, and they used to straight up just spray pesticides like while they were working, but like you can't really prove that's why, but like,
let's say you're a kid, but let's say you're a kid and your dad is dying, and your mom or whoever's with you, and they're telling you that he got cancer because he fought for his country and it got cancer from Agent Orange, and then when you get older, you investigate and find out that, oh, the government knew Agent Orange caused cancer. So at that point, you've planted a seed in that kid's head that fuck the government.
Yeah.
So he grew up to do this. However,
it's like asbestos too, or like fucking, you know.
Right. But however, like I said, he was the most level-headed one out of these dudes. Like when it came to,
and he wasn't very level-headed. He was just the most level-headed.
I would say Jason Bundy, or sorry, Jason Bundy. Jason Patrick is probably, he's level-headed. He's just, I mean, when you got nothing to do, like, there's a whole reason for all this shit. The thing about the West is why they were fighting this fight is because the West, for the most part, most of the land is federally owned. So it makes it really hard to make a living as a rancher. But then again, it's like this journalist said that these dudes saw themselves as like cowboys in the Wild West, you know, like they were fighting for America and they were taking over land and
I think it was
Manifest Destiny and all that shit.
Was it Lavoy Finicum that was the one that was talking about? Yeah, it was him, right? Where he was talking about how they were saying that it wasn't his land, but he considered it grazing land. Like he's like, no, it is my land because this is land for my cattle. They're allowed my cattle. They're allowed to graze here. Like, but according to him, the government was telling him that like it seemed like what he was saying is that it is government property, but like that he has these things called grazing rights as a rancher.
Okay, so Lavoy Finicum, so his story starts back in Nevada with Eamon Bundy and Clive Bundy. Clive Bundy is Eamon Bundy's dad. Okay, and they had a ranch out there in Nevada, and where this all started was that Clive Bundy had cattle that he would let graze on federal land. And to let your cattle graze on federal land, you got to pay dues. You know what I mean? It's kind of like registering a car or any of that shit. And
so he just didn't want to pay.
He didn't pay his dues from 1993 to 1998. He didn't pay any of his fucking dues. And so the government came and said, "Hey, you have to pay some of your dues." And in 98, like the government showed up and he was there and like a bunch of militia showed up. Lavoy Finicum was there. Patrick, what's his name, was there, and and the government stepped down. The government lost, and at that point, that's when they all decided it's like, okay, so we can stand up for our rights, or stand up to like piss off the government, and they're not gonna do shit to us. We won this time. Let's see how they do in Oregon. You know what I mean? So they were already in their mind. It's like, okay, we can win this. Yeah.
Right, but it's crazy that like Oregon's also like the headquarters for like the Proud Boys and shit like that.
But it's also like a super, like, I don't know what it is.
Well, why did they go from Nevada to Oregon? You know what I mean? Like, that's a fucking huge commitment for everybody to be like, hey.
Well, they did that because they saw the shit that was going on. Like, they'll take any press opportunity as an opportunity. You know what I mean? Like, if they can get in front of the camera, they'll get in front of the camera to say what they need to say, because they know, just like Trump did, it's like the best way to get your message across is to be on camera. It doesn't matter if it's negative press or like bad press or whatever. Like, get in front of the camera. But it's not just them. Like, the journalist that was there, Hal Herring. He's like the journalist dude that was talking to, like, he was saying really like philosophical things throughout the documentary.
Oh yeah.
Him. He was saying that the media ate it up. Again, they did the exact same thing they did with Trump. Like, they sat there and they fed these dudes like camera time. And as long as they were feeding these guys camera time, like, they were going to stay there. Because they said themselves, like, there's a point in the documentary where the dude goes, they're sitting around a campfire. And, it's like, oh, I just got a message online. And it's, oh, what's it say? It's like, oh, what are the plans next? What are we going to do next? He's like, plans next.
Freedom and stuff.
Freedom and stuff.
And
like,
douchebag, dude. What a
it's
loser.
Like, dude, because they had no plans. As long as like they kept getting camera coverage, they were fine. Like, they weren't gonna do anything. You know what I mean? Like,
no, I don't know. I didn't interpret it that way. I thought it was more of like we're not gonna reveal our plans because like it's kind of also one of those things where you're like alluding to the fact that you are dangerous, but you don't want the government to know how dangerous you are, Like, it's like, what are our plans? Like, I'm not going to say this on camera. It's freedom and stuff.
See, the thing is, the government knows how dangerous they are because of Waco. And there's another story in Oregon. Maybe we'll touch on it later on a different documentary because I can't recall the facts right now. Where kind of like Waco started and where like Timothy McVeigh got his inspiration and all that shit. Mm-hmm. Like, there was a story in Oregon where this guy was on a compound with his family, and they knew the compound was there, and they kind of lived like camping style where they had outhouses and shit. They were cut off from the outside world. But what he had done is that he had gone to a white nationalist rally. He wasn't a white nationalist, but he had gone to a white nationalist rally and sold a dude a sawed-off shotgun, which is illegal. And when the feds found out about it, they used that as to zone in and like, all right, let's take this dude down. And they had feds like surround the compound or whatever, and they had sharpshooters like in like these mountains over here and some over here, and the dude just like wandered out, and then the FBI takes a shot, bam, and it goes through him, and the FBI takes like 2 more shots, bam, bam, kills his son, and then when they run back to the cabin, he accidentally, like the FBI dude accidentally killed like their daughter and shit like that, like, you know what I mean, like, because. But I'm saying it's that accidental standoff shit. Like, they didn't want to deal with any of that. Like, they know about Waco, they know about that shit. Like, they don't want another Waco. Some chick even said no Waco because they knew like what would happen to people who like just like they stand there and the feds like watch, like sit there and you're just like, no, we're just gonna chill here with our guns.
And these fools got all their donation from like all their food and shit from donations, right? That's like everything that's what they're saying, that people would drive into the refuge to drop food off and shit like that. And then leave. Right. That's fucking crazy.
Well, because that
like if you're the police, wouldn't you think like, I'm not gonna let anybody in? Like, that's the best way to do it. That's kind of like what's it called, an embargo?
Yeah, like, to prevent them from that's a psychological aspect of this whole thing, right? If you're like a Black Lives Matter protester or Antifa or whatever, and you're watching these dudes kind of get away with their peaceful protests without anyone bitching at them, like for what you said, 40 days. Like, what is why? Why did they just let them do what they did? Like, is it the guns? It's because they were all armed to the teeth? Is that why? So that makes you think, well, maybe I should get a gun too. And then
I don't think it was the guns.
I think it was the guns.
We've talked about this before.
What?
Like, do you think the government is afraid of a bunch of white dudes with guns?
Again, well, yeah, we did talk about this, but we didn't go too far into it to where it's like, here's the thing: they can't drone strike their own.
Yeah, but you don't need a drone.
But you ever watch like those movies and like when it comes to like,
dude, we need to go back in time and revive Malhueyer and have him drive his fucking tank in. Dude, that'd be so sick. Drive his tank into the wildlife refuge and just
run shit over. But there was nothing there. What's he gonna run over? It's like a few pieces of fence and
no,
like,
they had little houses and stuff.
They had nothing to destroy in that. Like that's why I know they were bored because they were climbing up like power lines or whatever, and taking off the cameras, you know. Yeah. And they were all like super stoked about it.
Look at that!
We got the cameras.
Us.
Yeah, and it was just all like, what would we do? The government's not gonna kill us. If we
and I like that one guy gets down. He has the camera in his hand. Okay, so what happened is, like, there's seriously like a telephone pole, and it has like they go up to it and pull off like some cover on it, and like there's like these things that look like cameras in there, which they might not be cameras, but according to them, they're cameras.
They were cameras.
It could have been like some infrared shit or something. I don't know, whatever.
Sure.
Like it could have been something else. Like, but they had cameras on there, right? According to them. So they go up to the telephone pole and they rip the cameras out, right? And then this guy's like, "See, the government's spying on us. Why are they spying on us? I'm tired of being spied on." Blah blah blah.
Oh yeah, and then while the dude's going up there, he's like, "Let freedom ring!" Oh,
yeah. Like. And so he comes down, right, off the ladder, and then he gives it to this other guy. And then the other guy, like, straight up says, he's like, looking at it, he's like, "Well, it looks like they could probably just come back and, like, reconnect it or whatever. But we'll come back and take it down again."
Like, they were super bored. Like, there was nothing going on. Like, they were just bored. I also thought it was funny at one point, like, the dude's, like, in front of the campfire. And, like, they finally get something to eat. And it's all like, "Yeah, buddy," like... what do they call it? Barbecued pork and chicken enchiladas. Really, bro?
That was your friend. What's his name?
Was it Jason Patrick?
Yeah, it was him.
Shit.
Yeah, I thought it was him. I don't know. Maybe it's
I don't
not.
think it was.
They all look the same.
It's still funny, dude. And that sheriff was such a punk. Like he's all right, huh? That's not a real star. But yeah, he was just like he's like, I wish I could speak better in public. I wish I could do better.
Oh yeah, and he looked like he was about to puss out and cry.
And that's the thing. Like these dudes, like Amon Bundy and the other dudes, like they knew how to talk to the press. This guy, and I feel like every law enforcement dude does not know how to talk to the press. You know, and he's one of them. So it's just, you know, like it went on. Like I said, it went on for 14 days. They had nothing to do. So
41.
Huh?
41.
41 days. They had nothing to do. So I think towards the end, when, you know, the media was kind of like, "Man, we got better shit to do," so they start like trailing off or whatever. They decided they're gonna go up north to like John Day. I guess John Day's a place. John Day's a place north of Burns, and that's when they decided to like try to take off. But they're super public about them taking off. Like they went on Instagram or Facebook or whatever. And said,
"Wait, I think you skipped over the Nevada, the first thing that they did in Nevada. Remember they had like this crazy rally in Nevada."
Well, no, the Nevada thing. Well, that's what I was talking about. Nevada was Clive Bundy and Amon Bundy.
Yeah,
like, that was their ranch.
Yeah, but they had like a crazy rally where like they brought a bunch of people over and they were like riding horses and like.
I don't remember that at all.
Yeah, like it was in the documentary. There's like, I mean, fuck, but like they started in Nevada, like you said, but they had like a whole like rally or whatever where they like. They show what's his name? Fucking guy who died. What's his name?
Lavoy Finicum.
Lavoy Finicum. He's like riding up a mountain, and he has like the U.S. flag, and like it's like legitimate, like it looks like a fucking Ford commercial. Again,
so remember, those two events are detached from each other. They have nothing to do with one another. Well, okay. How'd I put this?
That's the inspiration.
It's not that they have nothing to do with one another, but remember that's what I was saying is that like Clive Bundy had his original protest there because his father's ranch, like his father was getting fucked with by the government because his cattle was grazing on federal land and he wanted to pay the fines, right? And Lavoy Finicum, so funny thing about Lavoy Finicum, okay, turns out that dude had a ranch, but he wasn't making any money on the ranch. But he ran a foster home, and he was getting paid $100,000 a year to run that foster home, and that's how he made his money.
What's a foster home?
Foster home, like he ran, like that's where orphan kids hang out and stuff.
An orphanage, not a foster home. It's an orphanage.
Well,
yeah, a foster home's like when you like.
Well, he was taking care of the kids. He was taking care of those kids. So it was a foster home.
Oh, but he was a foster
parent.
Oh, that's weird.
You get paid per
That's
kid.
weird. By the way, being a foster parent is kind of sketchy.
Well, I mean, he might have been a good dad or whatever, but or foster parent. But once he got hit, once they found out that like he the kind of dude he was, then they got rid of all his foster kids. Then he lost that money, and the ranch essentially like the only way it made money or paid for itself or whatever was the cows. That's what he said. But yeah, he made all of his money like fostering kids, like I said, $100,000 a year. And so that's when, once they took away his foster home, that's when he decided it's like, all right, now I need to fight for agrarian rights, essentially. So Lavoy Finicum joined Amon Bundy in Nevada, and these dudes did their thing in Nevada, and they beat the government, whatever. This shit happened in Oregon. Remember what I told you, the judges in Oregon decided that those original dudes had to serve their 5-year sentence. And that's when the Nevada dudes went up there and said, it's like, nah, fuck that, and blah, 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 time in the limelight, whatever. And they're all like a little group of dudes.
The amount of thought that this takes, though, is to me, how could you not think that is not a threat, to people, in general?
You mean carrying around their guns and shit?
No, but it's the thought that's the scary part. It started, the seed was planted in Nevada, right? And then it grew from there because of the lack of reaction from the government. So then they go up to Portland, up to what's it called? What's the place?
Burns, Oregon.
Okay, Burns.
Mm-hmm.
They go up there, and they didn't just go up there. It's not like one guy showed up and then was like, dude, nobody's watching this wildlife refuge. You guys should totally come over here. There had to be a movement of people that they knew, they had a target site that they knew, they had to have done some sort of surveillance or something to take over this shit. And that's the scary part. It's tactical, And on top of that, to make it worse is that they're carrying guns. So it's an actual, it's an attack. It is. If you look at it from the United States government perspective, it is an attack.
Well, yeah, it's taking over federal land.
Right. No, but just besides that, because you could do that peacefully, right?
Well, because technically the Capital Rioters did the same thing. They took over federal land, and they're right now they're suffering the consequences. A lot of those dudes are getting sentenced to prison and shit like that. But
yeah, but I think okay. First of all, I don't think that the Capital Rioters are right. In fact, I think that they're.
I think these are the same type of people. I think these are exactly the same type of people.
I agree. But I think that the Capital Riots are different because they went in there with the intention of foiling an election. Well, not even foiling in their eyes. They say that they weren't trying to foil it, but they were trying to, get them to recount the votes or whatever. But they went in there with the intention to steal the votes and to, a lot of them were targeting politicians that they wanted to kill, which is, I think, way more extreme than taking over a piece of, wilderness, basically.
Yes, but only... Okay, so this is the only time... I think the Capitol Riot was the only time where these dudes decided that they wanted to bring the fight to the government versus... We're going to take this shit over. You have to bring the fight to us. Because that's what has always happened, right?
Yeah.
And that's why these dudes were so big. His name is Pete Santelli. That was the guy. Pete Santelli is a dude that was kind of walking around. He was all
my favorite guy, dude.
Yeah. He was the one.
You know who he reminds me of? Huh. Randy Marsh.
No, he's not Randy Marsh, man. But he reminds me of
he's a jackass that thinks that he knows more than everybody else.
Every big Ford truck driving dude with Oasis. Just kind of just being louder than he has to be, whatever. And he goes up to the camera and he's like, fucking FBI, you come at me, put a bullet in my fucking head, put a bullet right the fuck here. These dudes were ready to die. I had big quotations, ready to die.
Yeah, that's what they kept saying too. They were there was that one dude that didn't have legs that was like, oh, I'd take a bullet for him. He'd take a bullet for me.
Yeah. It's like
he'd take a bullet for me. He'll die for me right now.
See, but he's an important part why I think this happened in the first place. Like why
Pete Santelli?
Like no, the
legless guy?
The legless guy, yeah. Because I think he's a good example of the frustration that they have with the government. Why Trump existed in the first place, basically. You know what I mean? Like and so like, but Pete Santelli, yeah, like all these dudes, they talked the way they were just all like, yeah, we're ready to die. Like one of the first scenes in the whole documentary is this guy talking about how it's like, this is Armageddon, and you know we're ready to die out here. And Mr. Obama, this is for you. You know what I mean? Like,
oh no, he said, what did he say? When you're faced with tyranny, the only reaction is
rebellion,
or like something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah, like, and he's like, Mr. Obama, this is for you.
This is for you. And then there was that black lady that was hanging out after the trial when like all these dudes got off essentially. And she's all like, what they did right now was basically say that this is Trump country all day. You know, like this is going to be a white utopia in Trump country all day. But like, I just think that, hold on, I was like, God, I forgot I was getting with that shit. But I just think that.
Go ahead. You got it.
No.
Go ahead.
I just think that like, okay, like first of all, they all got off. Okay, so that was a thing, right? Like they all went to court, whatever, and there was that double standard. But the thing that's important to remember about this, like why it happened, is I think it's a shift in, and this is what I tell everybody, like it's a shift in economic policy. You know what I mean? Like before, like we used to depend on like the cowboys and you know the farmers for money, you know.
So they still want, like, what you're, I mean, sorry to interrupt you, but what I'm saying, what I'm interpreting before you even finished your sentence was kind of like people think that they can still make money off of an old lifestyle that's just obsolete now.
Yes, exactly. Because they still think there was this journalist who said it. They feel like they're the cowboys of like, you know, the old West, where, you know, you could go and you could have your cattle ranch and you could make your money, and then you'd go into town and you sell your wares and you get paid in gold, and you were like that American Westerner making your money settling out west. But they also see themselves, and this is also dumb, as the Native Americans, because their land is getting taken away by the federal government. And so the way this whole thing worked was that the federal government came in and saw that Native Americans had the land, and they were like, all right, we got to take it away from you. And they're like, why? Why you got to take our land away? It's because, well, you're not using it economically. You know, there's people that could be farming this land and like running cattle on this land and really providing for the people around them if you weren't just sitting here. But they also saw Native Americans as subhuman, so it was nothing to them to be like, fuck off, like go away. You know, like,
right. Well, not them personally, like.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, totally personally. Yeah,
they really?
Like, yeah, they saw them as animals. They didn't care. They didn't give a shit.
I'm saying like their ancestors did, but not these people.
Oh yeah, not these people. Right.
Yeah.
So switch that around and look at it now, and the feds are coming in and be like, you know what? Like, I think it started in the 19th.
Damn. So do you think that that's like some other racist shit where they're thinking like they're starting to treat us like natives?
Well, that's like the double thing. Like, they see themselves as the old Westerner, like conquerors or whatever, the cowboys.
Yeah.
But they also see themselves as the Native Americans who are getting their land taken away. You know what I'm saying? Like, they see themselves as both, because you have like the feds coming in and saying,
because they're dumb as shit.
Yeah, because they're saying like, we could use the land for better things. So the BLM, not Black Lives Matter.
Oh, well, explain that whole.
So there's a scene in the documentary where it pans to a sign that says BLM, another form of oppression. And if you're watching the documentary, you assume it's a bunch of Trumpers, you know, it's a bunch of like right-wing crazies, and they hate Black Lives Matter. So you see that sign and you'd be like, oh man, they hate Black Lives Matter too? Like, that sucks. Like, you know, but I guess, you know, that's what happens when you're right-wing. Turns out that sign had nothing to do with Black Lives Matter. It's with the United States Bureau of Land Management. Like, you know what I mean?
I love that
all,
so much.
But I hate that. It's so dumb. Like, why'd you cut this? Like, why'd you make that cut? You could have easily, like, I don't know, whatever. So essentially,
Or you could have just had like some small little text on the bottom.
or not show the clip at all. It made no. It didn't add to the thing.
it was
didn't
just
do
to.
anything. It was just Morgan Spurlock being like, look at my burgers, and I ate these once. Like I threw up. That was fun. That was Morgan Spurlock. He did that. But anyway, essentially, the feds are coming in now, and they're buying, like, they have all this land. Because at first that was the case. They would give you the land if they knew you were going to farm it and provide, food and whatever. But, things change, and we import a lot of our shit. So we don't need the land for any of that. We need it for other shit, like Tesla factories and Amazon fulfillment centers and shit like that. So that's why, the rancher lifestyle is dying out. And so, like, this movement is essentially them fighting back, saying, like, we can't make a living doing this shit anymore. And like, and the feds are like fucking with us and saying we can't, like, but it's like, well, no, your way of living it's done. Like, that shit's done. Like, that's where, like, the Trump.
That's kind of the plot of Red Dead Redemption 2.
Is it?
Seriously.
But
it's like in Red Dead Redemption 2, it's basically like these guys were outlaws and they went around like stealing and like doing all this shit. But the world has become so civilized that they can't do shit like that anymore, because like they go into towns and there's actual like cops now, and like.
Well, you ever seen Public Enemy #1 with Johnny Depp, and he plays John Dillinger, the bank robber.
Mm.
And that's what he does. He robs banks. It's like the 1920s or 30s, and he robs banks. And one of the mob guys pulls him in. He's like, listen, and he takes him into a room and he shows him a chalkboard that has all the numbers for the day, running numbers, basically the lottery for them. And it's all like, listen, this is how we make money now. Like, we bring in millions of dollars a day, way more than robbing banks ever did and does. It's like, we need you to stop doing what you're doing because you're bringing heat on all of us, and the cops are concentrating on all of us. And then Johnny Depp, John Dillinger was just like, well, no, I'm just going to keep robbing banks. And eventually the mafia said, okay. And then they fucking killed his ass. So that's essentially the same thing, where you want to keep doing the same thing. Like, you want to keep robbing banks because you love doing it, but it's, everybody's getting wise to your shit and you can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like the death of a movement, I guess you could say.
Not even a movement, it's just a lifestyle.
Yeah, the death of
like
a lifestyle.
How even like there's like truckers now that are starting to get scared because Amazon's like developing trucks that drive themselves now.
Yeah, like automatically.
Yeah, so like it's like a lot of like there's like unions of truckers that are lobbying to ban like automated trucks because they know as soon as that shit happens, that's it. That's it.
So like I said, all this whole thing was because like I said, their lifestyle is dying out and they're trying like hell to not, to not have it die out.
But it all came to a head. Oh,
so you were talking about when they try to take, okay, so that's what we're getting to, when they try to take off to John Day and like, so they all took off to John Day to get more supplies. But you also got to remember at the beginning of all this, at least Lavoy Finicum for sure was like ready to die. You never heard Amon Bundy said, I'm ready to die. Patrick, or what's his name? Yeah, Pete Santelli. He was ready to die. Essentially.
Nah, I think that guy's a total puss,
he was a total puss. Yeah, because he's
a fucking puss.
Yeah, because he's like, don't harm anybody. Don't harm me. Actually, I'm demanding you don't harm anybody. Like, he said
like, I demand you don't harm anybody. But then he was like, that's not a threat.
It's not a threat.
He's like, but is that a hard demand to make? Don't harm anybody. And it's like, dude, like when you see this guy talk, I hope you look him up. His name is Pete Santelli.
Pete Santelli.
He's a total puss. If he's still alive,
he is. He has his own podcast.
I challenge you to a fucking fight, Pete Santelli. I had both my hips replaced. I'll still fuck your ass up, dude. No guns, bitch. Let's go.
Let's go.
It's fucking like. It's because like when you hear this guy talk, it's like
he's like that dude. He's like, hold me back,
yeah,
dude.
Yeah.
Hold me back.
He's a net banger. That's what he is, dude.
A what?
A net banger.
What's a net banger?
Like a net banger is like a guy who acts all badass on the internet and like talks shit, and then you see him in person.
Oh, he's a keyboard warrior.
Yeah.
Warrior.
Yeah. That's what he is. Like he's like that. He's a fucking pussy, dude. Like straight up.
Yeah, straight up. Like Yeah, because he was just all like, like I'll take a fucking bullet, and then he's like, don't harm it. Actually, I'm demanding you don't harm anybody. And and then he was talking to the FBI guy, and he was like, be constitutional, or he said something before that.
Oh yeah.
He was like, it's not a threat. It's not a threat, you fucking dick. Blah blah blah.
Oh yeah, because he told him to be constitutional apparently, and that it never shows it in the documentary, but apparently one of the FBI's guys or one of the FBI agents was like, is that a threat? That's what he said happened. And so after that, he was like getting on his little like martyrdom high horse and being like, it's not a threat. And if you think it is a threat, you come over here. Talk to me.
It's like that skit that I forgot what comedian did it, but like the Italian guy would come into the bar and he would say shit like, hey, you know what I hate? Like, I hate when those, and he was talking to a black guy. He's like, I hate when those colored guys come in here, kind of cheapen the neighborhood and they fuck everything up, because they like their shit, no disrespect. And it's all like, wait a minute, you can't just say like that super racist thing and then add no disrespect at the end of it and it becomes not racist automatically. It's like, no, it's still a threat. Like, like the only thing he didn't say was, or else. Like if he had to say, like that was the only phrase he was missing from all his shit. If he just said, don't harm anybody, or else, that changes everything. You just don't harm anybody. Don't do it. Like,
well, the way I see it is, it's more like, because this guy's basically like when you see this scene in the movie, he's like, or the documentary, I should say, he's like literally like he has a little megaphone and he's like yelling towards the cops, and the cops are like literally just standing there, like they're not scared at all. They're just chilling, and he's just like yelling. And I think it reminds me of like fucking Ghost Adventures, where that like douche presenter is like all buff and shit, and he's just like talking shit to the ghosts, like,
oh god,
you know who he's like,
that's exactly that.
He's like, come out and face me, but it's like he knows that they're not going to do anything. There's no ghosts.
No, because actually he knew that they were like not going to do anything. Because remember that one guy, the same guy who ripped off the camera and was just kind of like, we're going to take him down, whatever. There's that scene where he catches them. And he's like, make sure to bring the camera. And they're like, why? And he's like, because they won't shoot with a camera there. Remember aim on Bundy.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that?
Remember aiming.
Yeah,
remember Bundy.
Aiming.
Remember Bundy.
Shoot with the camera there.
And one of those guys was like, what's it called? He was, because this guy is like, he's like setting up and he's like putting his gun on, like whatever. The guy that we're talking about that said remember Bundy, he's like putting his gun like together, whatever, like setting up because they're gonna go like have a little like they kept having like short standoffs with the FBI, but like it was never violent. It was just like a lot of shit talking basically on their end. The FBI was just kind of like, dude, like
we're FBI, we're just here.
Yeah, like you guys better stop your shit because we're gonna come back and we're gonna fuck you up. Like that's basically all the FBI kind of said. And they didn't say it like so harshly. They were just like, hey, you should just like turn yourself in because things are not gonna end well if you keep doing this. But those guys would like suit up, like put all their gear on and shit, and then go and then have like these little standoffs. And so this guy's getting ready, he's putting his gun on and stuff. And then this other guy, like, well, the guy that's putting his gun on is like telling the camera guy that you're okay, kind of like you're okay, you can stay here, blah blah blah, all that. And then this other dude opens the door and he's like, get that fucking camera out of here, like all this shit. He's like, get that fucking camera out of here. He's like all pissed off. He's like, get that shit out of here. And then so the guy that's setting up his gun, he's like, they won't shoot us if we have a camera. He's like, we need a camera there. And then he starts yelling at him. He's like, remember Bundy, all that shit. But it's like, dude, like they were like, that actually shows you that they were depending on the media to keep them there
and
like
alive.
That guy understood that they needed the media because if it wasn't for the media, if it wasn't for coverage of that shit, then they didn't have any power at all.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, at least movies make it apparent that the government has no problem taking your ass out as long as there's no like cameras around, and that's why like. That's why they put like, what do you call it? Lapel cams or whatever on cops. Because they figure it's like, well, if you can see everything you're doing, you'll be less inclined to kill people, which is shitty to say, but it's true. Like if someone's watching all the time, they'll be less inclined to do some stupid shit. But like you were saying, this all came to a head when they made it very public. And I think at this point, this is where Lavoy Finicum knew that he was going to die. Like he knew he was going to like either try to die or something like,
or end up in jail at the very least.
No, he wasn't going to end up in jail
time.
because remember they did an interview with him where he said, I'm not going to end up in a cage. Like I'm not going to end up in a fucking cell. Like there's no way I end up in a cell. Like, you know, I'll go
Yeah, but
out.
what I'm saying is like those were his options. Like even if he chose to die because he didn't want to go to jail.
I'll give Lavoy Finicum this. I feel like he was the only one out of those cats who was willing to die for the cause. Like he was actually willing to die. He's the only one that wasn't a puss, and he was actually willing to go out swinging. You know what I mean? Like the rest of them were just talking a bunch of, you know, fleck or whatever and just trying to get a rise out of people. But Lavoy Finicum was actually willing to just like go, like fucking go, essentially, you know?
Yeah.
So when they take off, they broadcast pretty much to the world that they're going to take off to John Day, which is a location north of Burns, to go get more supplies or to do more filming, or like actually a meeting with the sheriff or something like that. But at this point, the feds know. It's like, okay, you're headed up north. You're going to be on a lone road with like snow capped, you know, like curbs and shit like that. It's like, we're going to take you down there. So they're going and the convoy's going and they pull them over. And like they show the footage of the camera inside the truck, and you know there's like they're talking to each other, and it's all like, oh, the feds here. It's like blah blah. It's like, and then one guy says, "It's actually Pete Santelli's in the back seat," and he goes, "You shouldn't have stopped. You shouldn't have stopped." And he's all like, "Well, oh, I'm gonna keep going then." And they're like, "All right, cool, like fucking blah blah." And he's like, boom, and he just takes off. He's already pulled over. He takes off, and they like boom. At that point, they're like,
Are they shooting? Are they
Are shooting? All
and
of a sudden,
honestly, like the
pat, 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 you hear shots.
The video is pretty scary. Like if I was in that situation,
yeah,
and it's crazy,
totally.
like because they're in the car and what's his name? This fool that we're talking about,
Pete Santelli or Lavoy Finicum?
Lavoy Finicum's
Right.
driving the car, and he's driving, and before he even takes off, he tells everybody get down. Like he knew that they were gonna start shooting.
Again, Lavoy Finicum was the hardest one out of all these cats. He was the one that was ready to go.
He was like, get
he was
down.
ready to fucking
he was
go.
like, get down. And then like one of the girls is like, you don't think they're gonna shoot the tires out? And then he's like, well, I don't give a fuck. I don't have nothing to live for. So he starts driving away, and he's like, he's driving, and they have a roadblock, and he tries to. He's like in like what is like a. Looks kind of like
it's like a white GMC Denali,
like an
some
Envoy or
bullshit.
some shit like that.
Yeah.
And he tries pulling over to go around the roadblock, but there's like, you have to keep in mind is like this area that they've occupied is covered in snow. Like it's a very cold part of Oregon. So he tries, it's a 2-lane road. They blocked it off, and he tries to swerve around the cops, but he fucking just goes into a pile of snow that you can't just do that at like a super high speed. So the car just fucking stops, like just hits the snow and just stops. And he gets out of the car. Well, he gets out of the car and he's like, what does he say? What does he say?
Go ahead and shoot me. Go ahead and shoot me.
Yeah. And they
Go
weren't
ahead
going to
and
shoot
me.
him. And he reached for a gun. He reached for his gun and tried to like draw.
Yeah.
He tried to do the Red Dead Redemption.
Oh yeah.
But
gonna work?
It's real life, and the FBI just.
Yep. Well, it wasn't. Like,
Yeah, I know. I'm
it
just
was
kidding.
like,
I just thought it'd be way funnier if Davey did. Yeah. But they fucking killed his ass.
They killed him, but he wanted to die. Like that was a dude who was willing to die for the cause that he believed in. So like if anything, I'll give him that. Like
The crazy thing though is that the video when they're inside the car, like all the windows are being like shot out and shit.
yeah.
Which is fucking crazy.
And then when
like-
they zoom out and they show like the overhead view and they show like the Suburban like inside the snow, and you see Lavoy Finicum like moving, and then just like boop, 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 and then
he's
he just like he collapses and he's just laying there. Yeah. He's dead. Lavoy Finicum's dead. And they're like yelling inside the thing. Yeah, it's pretty gnarly.
Did they shoot him? Those bastards! It's like what the fuck? You guys ran away from them.
Yeah, you ran
and
away
you guys
from the
all
cops.
ducked.
Yeah.
Like it's like, what did you expect?
Yeah,
Did
so,
you
like-
think that they weren't gonna shoot you because you guys ducked and drove away?
And this is the shit that I'm talking about, where they get mad about, you know, black people or Black Lives Matter, like
See, and sorry, but I think that pussy, what's his name? Pete Santelli?
Pete Santelli.
That guy, the reason that he said, well, you shouldn't have stopped, is because he was like, I don't want to go to jail.
Yeah, Pete Santelli is not about it. Ammon Bundy's about it. No. Yeah, actually, no. Fun fact about Ammon Bundy, he just got arrested 2 days ago.
Really?
Yeah, by trying to go inside the Idaho State House twice. Like one day he went in and got arrested, and then 2 days later he went back in and got arrested again, and now he can't go back for a year. Whatever, but he's crazy. He's about it. But Pete Santelli is a hanger-on. Pete Santelli is a cheerleader. You know what I'm saying? Like he sees dudes doing actual shit, and he decides he's going to tag along and try to be hard with them. Hopefully he gets pulled back before he actually gets into some shit. But that's Pete Santelli for sure.
So this fool got shot, and killed. And then after that, basically the FBI was not really scared anymore because they took care of one of the leaders of the movement.
Well, no, they had everybody because what's his name? Ammon Bundy's brother was in there. What do you call it? I think Ammon Bundy was in there too. They were all in there. Ammon Bundy was in there. Pete Santelli was in there.
In the car?
Yeah. Lavoy Finicum was in there. So they pretty much took out the leaders. In the Bundys, they took out their figurehead, like their symbolic leader, Lavoy Finicum, and they took out their mouthpiece, Pete Santelli. That was it. That's all you had. And so that's when it died out. They went to courts. They all got tried for, I think it was conspiracy to.
It was destruction of property, first of all, because of. They took over those little cabins that were out there, so they all got destruction of property. Right. And then it was it
was conspiracy.
It was conspiracy to it was something about the land or whatever.
Oh yeah, it was felony conspiracy or something like that. But the thing is, so they all got off anyway. That's whatever. They all got off.
Isn't that annoying?
Well, I
wish I would have done that. That sounds like a great time.
No, it actually sounds pretty shitty. But the thing is,
no, not if you're not one of the leaders.
Oh, true, very true. Yeah, you're just hanging out, and camping out for a couple weeks,
41 days.
But it was 20. It was I was gonna say it's 28 people that they caught, and I was like, well, there's hundreds there, whatever. But so everybody,
let's do it. Let's get one of our dumb friends to. Let's spice him up and be like, hey, dude, this is fucked up, right?
Or no, let's just go to one
so
of their...
he can lead.
These guys are doing their thing. Actually, it's not out. I don't know.
We won't make it. We're not white.
Oh. No. See, that's the thing I was trying to So it's very easy to call these dudes oh, man, they're Trumpers. They're probably racist, this and that. There was a black guy there. There was a couple black guys there, especially hanging out with Jason Patrick. And that's the fucked up thing is that...
Tokens?
Huh?
Tokens?
No, not tokens. They're just, there's black ranchers. There is. There's a couple.
I think that they do that shit. Honestly, they do that shit because there's a couple. There's only a couple.
Well, no, but think about the U.S. population as a whole. There's really only a couple of us. It's 15% or something like that. If you took 100 people and from America,
where were all the Hispanics?
And if you took 100 people and you stuck them out there, it'd be 45% white. 15% black and the rest is Hispanic, and then a small percentage Asian and
right.
Pacific
So what I'm
Islander
saying is, where are all the Hispanics in this little town then?
Well, I don't know,
because Hispanics account for a huge amount of the American population, right?
Yeah.
Right. So that's what I'm saying is these white people they like to have.
The only reason I know there was a black guy there is because I saw him in the camera shot, right? But if you showed me a camera shot with a white dude next to a Hispanic dude, and the Hispanic dude just happens to look, white, then I don't fucking know,
Yeah, like me. I look pretty white.
Exactly. I was going to say that, but I don't want to be a dick about it.
Yeah.
So, but like I said, they all got off, but the only one who got charged with anything was Jason Patrick. And now he faces 5 years in prison. The most level-headed dude.
5 years.
Well, I mean, he didn't do anything really except occupy a thing, but he was the one that was there for actual political causes, the one that's actually trying to do right and not have the government take over your shit. He was the only one that was there for that reason. Ammon Bundy and Pete Santelli and even Lavoy Finicum were there to get the media's attention and be like, this is what's going on and blah, 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 our movement. But Jason Patrick's all well, I actually want to talk about.
But don't you think that that's kind of like they want the media's attention because there's a larger agenda. Like I said, like this could be me like being a conspiracy theorist or whatever. Obviously, this isn't fact, but this is the way I interpret it. Like, if you're gonna take the time to make a plan to take over a wildlife refuge and have media coverage on it, it's because you want that idea to spread somewhere else.
Well, yeah, there was that guy who was talking about when he was looking at the map and he was all, this is where we started, but because of social media and the internet, this is what it's doing. And it's like, it's spreading everywhere. Mm-hmm. And again, it's a good and a bad thing, because it's a good thing that if you want less government control over your shit, like, less police funding, you don't want the cops or anybody telling you what to do, whatever. It's fine if that, that's because that kind of goes in line with what they want. They want less federal oversight over their lives, essentially, but they don't see that, like it was easy for, especially Trump, like to pick apart their beliefs and like turn it against what, other minorities wanted. And so it was easy for him to like pick at that. But they essentially want the exact same things. Like there was that Celebrity Jeopardy where like Tom Hanks shows up and, he's around like, like those the three black contestants, and like the black host is talking, and they actually go through the questions and they find out they actually have a lot in common and they shouldn't be fighting each other. But because it's easier to drive that like racial divide, that it made it easy for like, it's something easy to like pick at and, get people pissed off at, you know what I mean? So I don't know.
That's shitty.
It's really shitty.
Yeah.
But
it's like just brainwashing, dude.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And these fucking crazy militia people know how to use that shit now.
Well, not all of them. There's a select few. Amon Bundy is one of them.
Donald Trump
is one of them. Bundy's brother is another one. And then, Pete Santelli is kind of one of them, but again, he needs some help. You know what I'm saying? He needs like someone to like, go up there. No. I mean, like he needs someone to like take the charge for him.
He needs to eat his Wheaties.
Like,
he needs to eat his Wheaties. He needs to lift some weights.
You ever see those like mob movies where like there's like
take some testosterone?
No, like there's like the main mob boss, and he's like, okay, he's gonna be sleeping with the fishes, and there's like that little dude next to him. He's like, yeah, sleeping with the fishes.
Yeah, you're gonna be sleeping with the fishes. Like, have you seen The Crow?
Yes.
You remember the guy? What's his name? The guy that's like kind of like special a little bit. That's like they tell him to go inside and like pick up some beers, and he's like, yeah, sure, boss. Like, and he goes inside or whatever, but he's like not really any leader or whatever. He's just kind of like dead weight, basically, that will do like small tasks that aren't even really tasks. It's kind of like a intern almost. Like,
yeah, that's Pete Santelli. Pete Santelli's the intern.
Shout out to Pete Santelli, the intern of the right-wing militia movement. Holy shit. We would like bagels and coffee, Pete.
Pete Santelli. But can you do it quietly though? Like, I don't need you like yelling at everybody, like and getting everybody pissed off at us.
That's not a threat.
That's not a threat. Because if it was a threat, I would have said or else. But I didn't say or else. Yeah. So.
All right.
But I think that's a good way to end it. Join us next week. We'll be talking about a lighter issue. We have a list. Not sure what it is right now, but
I think it's Bee Gees, but
the Bee Gees. Yes, we're gonna be talking about the Bee Gees and music, something nice and light, unless it gets into like a dark, crazy like thing where it turns out like
dark, honestly.
John Bee decided he was gonna do a bunch of heroin, and then he had like a dog fighting ring under it and shit.
That actually kind of does.
And then it was just kind of like, and then but it like evolved into like a cockfighting ring, and then Michael Vick just happened to be there. It was actually his grandpa.
That's very similar.
Yeah. So unless it gets that, it probably won't. But anyway, cheers. Please like and subscribe. If you have any recommendations in the comments section, follow us on IG. We're posting.
We're also not going to focus on documentaries. It's just something that we both like talking about right now. But
yeah, we're going
to start branching out into different shit.
Yeah, we're going to start getting to people as well. We'll do some history shit because there's a lot of shit that we don't know that we want to find out about. And if we happen to talk about it in an educational way with alcohol, then fucking A.
Cheers.
Cheers and beers.